Hi everybody, it's that time again, time for Story Time with Nonna, and I've got our last installment from the Album of Horses, one of my favorite books when I was a little girl. So we have one more story, and it's actually about the quarter horse, which we had as a family. We had a quarter horse that was really beloved of my daughter. She loved to ride him, and he was very fast, and just like the horses that we're going to read about now. His name was Taz. So let's get started. The quarter horse. He is not a quarter of a horse or a quarter of anything. He is himself, the fastest piece of horseflesh in the world for a quarter of a mile, hence his name, the name he has borne almost since the first colonists landed in Virginia. Long before the American Revolution, long before the creation of the thoroughbred, the quarter horse was an old established strain. He was bred for two purposes, to work and to race, and he excelled at both. On work days, he chased wild cattle, rounding them up, driving them into the cow pens. But on holidays, he was a racehorse. There were no smooth oval tracks in those days, only straightaways carved out of virgin forests. Occasionally, the path was so rough that men used their wives' big iron kettles turned upside down to scrape it smooth. Sometimes this racing strip was only 10 yards long, and sometimes it stretched out the full quarter of a mile. But whatever the distance, the colonists reveled in the quick flash of speed. It lifted their weariness, relaxed their muscles aching from the work of settling a new land, dulled the homesickness for the land they had left. It took only 2 horses to make a race and any clearing to make a track. Owners made the best jockeys, with pantaloons bellying in the wind and kerchiefs tying down their hair. They urged their chunky steeds to victory. All along the race path, settlers in coonskin caps, Native Americans in feather headdresses, Quakers in their sober black, Cavaliers in their old finery, all shouted as one man, throwing assorted headgear into the air for the winner. The Native Americans who came to watch were friendly. They rode in from the backwoods on little Spanish mustangs, bringing an extra 1 or 2 for trade for tobacco or beads. It was easy to find a trader, for the colonists liked this wiry animal. It was the Mustang who contributed speed to their quarter horses. The first settlers had bred their stout-bodied English horses to him, and in this way had developed a short-legged running horse of great strength and swiftness. The quarter horses were the first race horses of America, and they became so famous that men referred to them by their initials alone. In early books, in letters and diaries, they wrote of the CAQRH, meaning the celebrated American quarter running horses. They described them as being not very tall, but hardy, strong, and fleet. For nearly 100 years, the CAQRH were the only racehorses in America. Then on sailing ships from England came the thoroughbred. And with his coming, the scene changed. Racecourses were built a whole mile long. Flyweight jockeys were hired, and they wore bright silk jackets and jockey caps instead of pantaloons and kerchiefs. It was inevitable that the short-legged quarter horse and the long-legged thoroughbred should be matched on the new race courses, and results too were inevitable. The quarter horse jumped away from the starting point and led to the first quarter. Then the thoroughbred came on to win. The thoroughbred was built for sustained speed. Everything about him was long and rangy. Long legs, long body, long neck. Even his ears grew longer than those of the quarter horse. He was built exactly like a greyhound, and he stretched out in his going like a greyhound. Pound for pound, the thoroughbred and the quarter horse weighed the same, but there the resemblance ended. It was a case of greyhound versus bulldog. The quarter horse was short-legged, short-backed, short-necked. Even his ears were short. Little fox ears, they were called. Alongside him, the thoroughbred seemed almost gone, for the quarter horse was bunched with muscle. His chest, his shoulders, his forearm, his hindquarters bulged with layers of muscle. His jaw, too, was muscled and massive and broad like that of a bulldog. It was inevitable, too, that the thoroughbred should be crossed with the quarter horse to see what would come of the fusing of these two breeds. Janus, a grandson of the Godolphin Arabian, was chosen to sire a new line of quarter horses, and horsemen waited expectantly. Would the blood of Janus streamline the quarter horse? Would it create a new strain, a horse that could run an explosive race for an entire mile? No such thing happened. It was almost as if one quarter horse had been bred to another. The sons of Janus clung to their dam's character with bulldog tenacity. They were still blocky in build and faster than ever on the getaway. But with each year, as more and more thoroughbreds were imported, short racing died out. A weaker breed than the quarter horse would have vanished from this racing scene. But he widened his territory. By river and boat, and by pack train he moved westward, and once again his brawn and speed stood him in good stead. The cattlemen on the southwestern plains needed a chunky horse of immense power, one that could brace himself against the shock of 1,000 pounds of wild steer at the end of a rope. They needed a horse that could pound over roughed-up land, swim rivers, push through brush, one that could maneuver a prize steer out of the herd or a runaway into the herd. In short, they needed the quarter horse. He took root in the Southwest, especially in Texas, and as long as the range country endures, Texans say they will need him. What of his racing career? Over and done with? It is just beginning again. Cattlemen, like the early settlers, need to work off the loneliness of their jobs, and so they get together and match the sprinting skill of their horses. Often they use any level stretch of land and have the little private races with their neighbors. But sometimes they attend the big quarter horse races, where the straightaways are smooth and harrowed, and there are grandstands and fence rails and all the fixings of the fine tracks. In 1947, a quarter horse mare, Barbara B., raced against a famous thoroughbred in the quarter mile. The purpose was to prove the superiority of the thoroughbred, but history only repeated itself. The quarter horse won. Short racing has not changed much since colonial days. The track is nearly always a straightaway, and there is seldom a mechanical starting gate. The quarter horse jumps out from a starting position, and there is no crowding at the turns, for there are none. Each horse stays in his own lane, or he is disqualified. At the start of the race, the horses are often recalled again and again, and only an animal with a good disposition could keep up with his eagerness to go. Admirers of this placid disposition like to tell about the mare that pulled a washerwoman's cart down in Texas. The mare was a full sister to Kingfisher, a most Caqrh. If she had wanted to, she could have flown through the streets, pitching clean shirts high into the air. Did she do it? No. She obeyed the traffic laws and stopped at each customer's house, nice as you please. As her brother became more famous, horsemen trailed the cart, begging to buy or trade for the mare. The washerwoman refused to sell. "I ain't gonna do it," she flatly pronounced. "I raised up this filly foal on a bottle, and she thinks I'm her mama. If I let her go, I'll only spend the cash, and then where would I be? Back scrubbing clothes again, and no horse to tote 'em." For nearly 300 years, the quarter horse has had a distinct type, but not until 1941 was he recognized with a stud book of his own. Now he is no longer just a type, no longer just a poor man's racehorse. He has his own registry like other breeds. At last, that bulldog tenacity has won. And with little fox ears pricked, he goes on in the tradition of his forebears, racehorse and cow pony both. That was a good story about the quarter horse, the cowboy's horse. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed our series about the album of horses. Marguerite Henry was a great author. She wrote many horse books, and Wesley Dennis illustrated a lot of her work. So that's it for today. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I enjoyed reading to you, and I'll see you next time. Be sure to tune in on Storytime with Nonna. Bye.